I was sitting across from Grace at this cozy Italian restaurant downtown Candlelight, flickering between us when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen made my stomach drop. Amanda, my ex-wife. The text read, "We need to talk." I looked at Grace smiling as she told me about her students then, back at that message. 6 months ago, Amanda walked out of my life. Now she wanted to talk. I made a decision right there that I never thought I would have the guts to make. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly as I typed out a response that would change everything. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, hit that like button, and make sure to subscribe because what I texted back that night changed everything. Trust me, you will want to hear how one message can flip your entire world upside down. Now let me take you back to where it all started. 5 years ago, I met Amanda at the Portland branch of a Silicon Valley tech company where I worked as a software engineer. She was the marketing manager, 29 years old with long brown hair, and this professional confidence that drew me in immediately. We first crossed paths during a project meeting where she presented the strategy for launching our new product. I was captivated by how smart and self-assured she seemed. After that meeting, I found an excuse to approach her and asked if she wanted to grab coffee sometime. We dated for 2 years, and during that time, Amanda seemed genuinely thoughtful. She would cook dinner for me, ask about my workday, send encouraging texts when I was pulling late nights at the office. I truly believed I had found my person, someone I could build a future with. I proposed to her at Cannon Beach in Oregon during a summer sunset. The waves crashed behind us as I got down on one knee, and when she said yes through happy tears, I thought my life was complete. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony with close family and friends. We rented a two-bedroom apartment in the Pearl District and started building what I thought would be our forever life together. I worked hard, often putting in extra hours because I wanted to get promoted and give us financial security. Amanda supported me, or so I thought. She would say things like, "I believe in you. We are building our future together." On weekends, we went hiking, watched movies, cooked meals side by side. Everything felt perfect. Then, about a year into our marriage, I got promoted to senior software engineer. My salary jumped from $95,000 to $140,000 a year. I was thrilled and rushed home to tell Amanda the good news. She was happy at first, hugging me and saying how proud she was. But something shifted after that. Within weeks, she started asking for expensive things. A Louis Vuitton bag that cost $3,000. A trip to Europe that summer with a budget of $15,000. I agreed because I wanted to make her happy, but the financial pressure was starting to weigh on me. Then her behavior started changing in ways I could not ignore. Every Friday night, she would go out with her girlfriends and come home at 1 or 2 in the morning. When she was home, she seemed distant, barely interested in my day or what was happening at work. She spent hours on her phone giggling at messages. When I asked who she was texting, she would say, "Just my girlfriends." But her eyes always darted away when she answered. During this time, I got to know her younger sister, Grace, better. Grace was 25, an elementary school teacher, with a completely different personality from Amanda. She dressed simply in jeans and t-shirts, wore minimal makeup, and had this genuine warmth about her. She would stop by our place sometimes, bringing homemade food and asking how I was doing. She always seemed to notice when I looked tired or stressed. One time she pulled me aside and said quietly, "Amanda has changed a lot lately. I hope everything is okay between you two." I was touched by her concern but still trusted my wife at that point. One night around 2 in the morning, I woke up and noticed Amanda was not in bed. I found her sitting in the bathroom with the door cracked open, her face illuminated by her phone screen. She was texting someone and smiling. I knocked on the door and she jumped, immediately turning off her phone. "Who are you texting at this hour?" I asked. She stammered, "Just Sarah. She is having relationship problems and needed advice." But her eyes looked panicked and her hands were shaking as she held the phone. I felt that sinking feeling in my gut, but chose to believe her. The signs kept piling up, though. Credit card statements showed charges at expensive restaurants and hotels. Amanda started taking more business trips on weekends. Sometimes she would come home with an unfamiliar cologne scent on her clothes. She stopped wanting any physical intimacy with me, always claiming she was too tired, had a headache, or was busy with work stuff. I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. Maybe she was stressed about work. Maybe I was reading too much into things. But the uneasy feeling never left me. Then I found something that made it impossible to ignore anymore. While putting away laundry, I discovered a hotel receipt in her purse from the Kimpton Hotel. The date on it was from the previous Saturday. That was the day Amanda told me she was on a business trip to Seattle with her marketing team. But the Kimpton Hotel was right here in Portland, only 4 miles from our apartment. I stood there holding that receipt, my hands trembling. The sense of betrayal washed over me, but I knew I needed concrete proof before confronting her. I made the decision to find out the truth once and for all. I could not keep living in this fog of suspicion and doubt. But I also knew I needed to be smart about it. If I confronted Amanda without solid evidence, she could just deny everything and I would be left with nothing. I started by digging through our credit card statements more carefully. There were multiple charges at upscale restaurants like the Nines and Le Pigeon, always for 2 people based on the amounts. I logged into our shared email account that Amanda had apparently forgotten to change the password for. There I found confirmation emails for hotel reservations, but no actual correspondence that revealed who she was meeting. After 2 weeks of this torture, I decided to hire a private investigator. I found a firm downtown run by a man named Mr. Harrison. The cost was $2,500 for 2 weeks of surveillance. I met him at his office, handed him photos of Amanda and her typical schedule. He looked at me with experienced eyes and said, "I will get you the truth, sir, but be prepared it might hurt." I nodded and replied, "I need to know." Those 2 weeks were some of the hardest of my life. During the day, I went through the motions at work, coding and attending meetings like everything was normal. At night, I came home and pretended things were fine with Amanda. She continued her pattern of going out frequently and coming home late. I did not ask questions. I just watched and waited. On day 14, an email from Mr. Harrison arrived. "I have what you need. Can we meet?" We met at a quiet coffee shop away from downtown. He handed me a thick manila envelope. Inside were over 30 photographs and a detailed report. My heart pounded as I opened it. The first photo showed Amanda walking hand in hand with a tall man with blonde hair, probably in his early 40s, wearing an expensive suit. They were entering the Kimpton Hotel together. The next series of photos showed them at various restaurants over different nights. Then there were images of them kissing in a parking garage. More photos showed them checking into hotels and leaving hours later. Mr. Harrison slid a paper across the table. "His name is Kyle Brennan, 42 years old. He is the vice president of marketing at your wife's company. Married with 2 kids." He paused, then added, "They have been meeting twice a week for the past 8 months, sir." I sat there in silence for what felt like forever, staring at those photographs. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I could barely breathe. But after that initial shock, a strange calm settled over me. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison," I said. "This is exactly what I needed." I paid him and walked out with that envelope tucked under my arm. Instead of rushing home to confront Amanda, I took my time. I went to a print shop and made copies of everything. I organized the photos chronologically. Then I contacted a divorce attorney, a woman named Ellen Martinez, who had a strong reputation in Portland. I showed her all the evidence during our first meeting. She studied the photos carefully and said, "With this evidence and your prenup, you will be fine. Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can affect asset division in your favor." I looked her in the eye and said, "I want this to be fast and clean. She gets nothing beyond what the law requires." She nodded, and we began preparing the paperwork. I spent the next few days getting myself mentally ready. I still loved Amanda, or at least I loved who I thought she was. But this betrayal cut too deep. There would be no forgiveness, no second chances. I decided to confront her on Friday evening. On that Friday, I came home early and arranged all the photographs in chronological order across our dining table. At 7 in the evening, Amanda walked in wearing a black dress smelling of strong perfume. Hey, I am home. What is for dinner? She called out cheerfully. I was sitting on the couch and said calmly, Come to the dining table. We need to talk. I heard her footsteps and then silence. She had seen the photos. I walked into the dining room to find her standing there, face pale, hands shaking. What? What is this? She whispered. You tell me, I said coldly. Who is Kyle Brennan? She tried to deny it at first. This is not what it looks like. He is just my boss. We were discussing work. I picked up one of the photos showing them kissing and held it up. Work? You discuss work like this. She went silent. For 10 minutes, she tried to make excuses, her voice getting more desperate. Finally, she collapsed into a chair and started crying. I am sorry. I am so sorry. It was a mistake. I will end it right now. I shook my head. 8 months is not a mistake, Amanda. It is a choice. You chose this. Then her tone shifted completely. She stood up, anger flashing in her eyes. You never had time for me. You only cared about work. I needed attention, and Kyle gave me that. I stood up too, looking at her directly. I worked hard to give you the life you wanted. The bags, the trips, everything. You threw it all away. I want a divorce, I said firmly. Her face crumpled. No, please, we can fix this. I will change, I promise. But I had already made up my mind. I already contacted a lawyer. You will be served papers next week. I walked into the bedroom and locked the door behind me. Amanda spent the entire night knocking on the door, begging me to come out and talk. When I emerged the next morning, her demeanor had changed completely. Fine, she said bitterly. If you want a divorce, I will take everything. This apartment, your money, all of it. I calmly pulled out a copy of our prenuptial agreement and handed it to her. Read this again. You signed it before we got married. I watched the realization dawn on her face. She was not going to get nearly as much as she thought. The divorce process dragged on for 6 months. Amanda tried to delay things, hoping to negotiate better terms, but my lawyer was excellent, and the evidence of her affair was ironclad. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. Amanda received the minimum asset division required by Oregon law. I kept the apartment and most of our savings. When the divorce was finally official, I felt like I could breathe again. I moved into a new apartment in the Alberta Arts District, a fresh start in a neighborhood I had always liked. I threw myself into work and got promoted to senior engineering manager with a salary of $180,000 a year. I started going to the gym regularly, reconnecting with old friends and slowly rebuilding my life. For the first time in years, I felt free. During the divorce process, Grace had occasionally sent me text messages checking in on how I was doing. She apologized repeatedly for her sister's actions, saying she felt ashamed and embarrassed. I always reassured her, it is not your fault. You are not responsible for her actions. After the divorce was finalized, we stayed in touch, meeting for coffee here and there as friends. About 3 months after the divorce, Grace reached out and suggested we grab coffee. We met at Stumptown Coffee on a Saturday afternoon. What I thought would be a quick catch-up turned into a 3-hour conversation. She told me funny stories about her students, the challenges of teaching, and her dreams of maybe becoming a principal someday. I shared updates about work, my new apartment, and how I was adjusting to single life. Neither of us wanted the conversation to end. After that, we started meeting more regularly. We went to see movies, hiked the trails at Forest Park, and she would sometimes bring over food she had cooked, and we would eat dinner at my place. I found myself looking forward to our time together more and more. With Grace, I felt relaxed and genuinely happy in a way I had not felt in years. One evening after we had watched a movie at my apartment, Grace stayed sitting on the couch as I cleaned up the popcorn bowls. When I came back and sat down, she turned to me with a nervous expression. "Can I tell you something?" she asked quietly. "Of course," I replied. She took a deep breath. "I have had feelings for you since the first time we met at your wedding. But you were married to my sister, so I never said anything. I kept those feelings locked away." She looked down at her hands. I know this sounds crazy, and I understand completely if you do not feel the same way. I just needed to be honest with you. I sat there for a moment, then smiled. You know what, I feel the same way. I have felt it growing for a while now. Her eyes widened. Really? I nodded. You are kind and genuine. You make me feel valued as a person, not just as a paycheck or a status symbol. That is something Amanda never did. Grace smiled through tears and we held hands. We decided to take things slow and see where this relationship could go. We agreed to keep it private for now, not wanting to create unnecessary drama with Amanda. Only Grace's parents knew and they were supportive. They had always liked me even during my marriage to Amanda. Over the next 3 months, my relationship with Grace deepened. She moved some of her things into my apartment and we fell into an easy, comfortable rhythm. Our weekends were spent cooking together, taking walks, and just enjoying each other's company. This was what a real partnership felt like. Then came that Friday night 6 months after my divorce was finalized. Grace and I had been dating for 3 months at that point. We decided to go to Grassa, a nice Italian restaurant downtown. The atmosphere was intimate with soft lighting and candles on the tables. Grace wore a light blue dress and had her hair down. She looked beautiful. We were laughing and sipping wine completely at ease with each other. That is when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and saw the name I had not seen in months, Amanda. The message read, "We need to talk." I frowned. Grace noticed my expression change. "Everything okay?" she asked. I turned my phone screen toward her so she could see the message. Her eyebrows went up. "Amanda, what does she want?" I shook my head. "I have no idea. We have not talked since the divorce was finalized 6 months ago." A few seconds later, another message came through. "Please, Dominic, it is important." Grace watched me, waiting to see what I would do. "Are you going to reply?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. What could Amanda possibly want to talk about? We had settled everything through lawyers. She had made her choices and I had moved on. Then I looked at Grace, the woman who had shown me what genuine love and respect looked like. A decision crystallized in my mind. I picked up my phone and typed, "Not now, I am out with your sister." My finger hovered over the send button. Grace saw what I had written and her eyes went wide. "Are you serious? You are actually going to send that?" I looked at her and said, "She needs to know I have moved on, and I am happy." I pressed send. Grace laughed and shook her head. "This is going to blow up." I shrugged. "Let it. I do not care anymore." I put my phone face down on the table and we went back to enjoying our dinner. Within 5 minutes, my phone started vibrating nonstop. I flipped it over briefly and saw incoming calls from Amanda. One call, then two, then five. Text messages started flooding in. "What? You are joking, right? Call me now. How could you do this to me?" Grace looked at my buzzing phone and said, "She is freaking out." I switched the phone to silent mode and placed it back down on the table. "Not my problem," I said calmly. We finished our meal, ordered dessert, and talked about our plans for the next weekend. I felt lighter than I had in years, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Grace reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "How do you feel?" she asked. I smiled. "Honestly, I feel great." We clinked our wine glasses together and enjoyed the rest of our evening. The next morning was Saturday. I woke up around 7 and immediately checked my phone. 47 text messages and 23 missed calls from Amanda. I scrolled through some of the messages. They ranged from begging me to talk to her, to cursing me out, to threatening legal action, then back to begging. I shook my head. I was about to put the phone down when I heard loud knocking at my door. Knock, knock, knock. The pounding was aggressive and urgent. I got up, threw on a t-shirt, and walked to the door. When I opened it, Amanda stood there looking completely disheveled. Her face was red and blotchy, eyes swollen from crying, hair messy and uncombed. She wore a gray hoodie and jeans looking nothing like the polished woman I had married. "How could you?" she practically shouted. "With my sister, my own sister." I kept my voice calm. "You lost the right to question my life when you cheated on me with Kyle for 8 months." Her face contorted. "That was different. I made a mistake." I shook my head. "No, Amanda. You made a choice. Over and over again for 8 months straight." She suddenly crumpled, sinking down onto the hallway floor outside my door, sobbing. "Kyle left me," she choked out between tears. "He went back to his wife. Said it was just a fling and he could not risk his family." She looked up at me with desperate eyes. "And I got fired from my job. The company found out about our relationship and said it was unprofessional and violated their code of conduct." She wiped her nose with her sleeve. "I have nothing left, Dominic. I lost everything. I need you. Please." I looked down at her coldly. "I am not your backup plan, Amanda. You do not get to destroy what we had and then come running back when your affair falls apart." She stood up, anger replacing the tears. "You cannot be with Grace. She is my sister. Do you not see how messed up that is?" I crossed my arms. "What is messed up is you cheating on your husband. Grace and I both care about each other. What we have is real." Amanda's voice got louder. "She is just using you to get back at me to hurt me." I almost laughed. "Grace has shown me what real love looks like. She cares about who I am as a person, not what I can buy her or what status I can give her. That is something you never did. Never?" Amanda tried one more time, her voice breaking. "Please just give me another chance. I will be better. I will be the wife you deserve." I looked at her and said firmly, "No, we are done, Amanda. It is time for you to move on with your life. I already have." She stood there for a moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she turned and started walking down the hallway. She looked back one last time. "You will regret this," she said quietly. I met her eyes. "No, I will not." Then I closed the door and locked it. I leaned against the door and let out a long breath. It was finally truly over. I pulled out my phone and texted Grace. "She came to my apartment this morning. It is done now." Grace immediately replied, "Are you okay?" I typed back, "I am perfect." 2 weeks after that confrontation, Grace and I decided it was time to stop hiding our relationship. We posted a photo together on social media. The response from my friends was overwhelmingly positive. People told me I deserved happiness and that they were glad to see me smiling again. Grace's family was thrilled. Her parents actually told us, "We always liked you more than Amanda anyway. You are good for Grace." As for Amanda, she disappeared from our lives after that morning at my door. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had moved to Seattle to start over. I genuinely did not care what she did with her life. That chapter was closed. Life with Grace was everything I had hoped a relationship could be. 6 months after we went public, she moved into my apartment officially. She brought her plants, her books, and a warmth that made the whole place feel like home. Our weekends became a routine of cooking breakfast together, going for walks in the neighborhood, watching movies curled up on the couch. There was no drama, no secrets, no games. Just two people who genuinely cared about each other, building something real. At work, I continued to excel and was promoted again, this time to engineering director. Grace was recognized as Teacher of the Year at her school, an honor she had worked incredibly hard for. We celebrated each other's successes and supported each other through challenges. This was the partnership I had always wanted but never had with Amanda. Looking back on everything that happened, I learned some important lessons. Never accept being someone's second choice or backup plan. Real happiness comes from being with someone who values you for who you are, not what you can provide. Sometimes losing something painful makes room for something beautiful. Knowing when to let go takes strength, but it is worth it. And you do not owe forgiveness to people who do not deserve it. I do not hate Amanda. Honestly, I just feel sorry for her. She destroyed her own life chasing something shallow and temporary. But that is not my problem anymore. I made my peace with it and moved forward. As for Grace, I am grateful every single day that I found someone who truly loves me. She is not perfect, nobody is, but she loves me with her whole heart, and that makes all the difference. A year after that text message at the Italian restaurant, I proposed to Grace at Cannon Beach, the same place I had proposed to Amanda years before. But this time felt completely different. As the sun set over the ocean and Grace said yes with tears of joy in her eyes, I realized something important. Sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is simply living well with the right person by your side. Have you ever had to make a tough decision to move on from someone who hurt you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you find the courage to choose your own happiness, whatever that looks like for you. Take care.